Hello everybody, welcome back to Talking Pictures. In our last episode, we took a look at the life and works of early Dunedin photographer Joseph Weaver Allen. This time, we turn our attention to Allen's mentor, William Meluish. William Meluish and his wife Emma came to New Zealand late in 1858 and opened a photography studio in Nelson. Then in February 1860, the Meluishes announced they were leaving Nelson. And they came here to Dunedin, where they began operating out of the building on the left of this photo, with a sign beside the door which read "Photographic portraits taken daily." The sign was backed up by a newspaper advertisement in which William offered to take first-class portraits in every style, daily, in all weathers, and to fit lockets, copy pictures, and take photos of houses. 6 months later, he advertised that he was sticking around for a bit, after having now bought the gallery of Dunedin's first photographer James Wilson, and created a larger studio space for taking portraits. A year or so later, he was also importing prams. By then, the Otago gold rushes had broken out, and he was also selling views of the diggings. This Meluish view of Gabriel's Gully was later turned into an engraving that appeared in the Illustrated London News in 1862. While this lithograph by W. and A. K. Johnston of Edinburgh was inspired by another of Meluish's views of the gully. In 1863, the Meluish's property on the corner of Princes and Dowling Streets was transformed from this to this. But late that same year, William, who was then around 40 years of age, announced his retirement, and at the beginning of 1864, his photography business was taken over by Daniel Mundy & Co. After a large fire broke out near the studio in 1865 and destroyed much of the block, Meluish rebuilt on the site, leasing the ground floor of the new building to a sewing machine dealer and resuming business as an importer of photography supplies himself on the upper floor. The Meluishes owned other properties in Dunedin in the 1860s too, including this hotel on the corner of Princes Street and the Octagon, which they built and applied for a license for in 1862. On the 1st of April 1867, the shop next to the hotel, which they also then owned, caught fire. The shop, occupied by ironmonger George Wilson, and the hotel, leased by Joseph Harding, along with a large number of buildings on both sides of the northern end of Princes Street, were completely destroyed. The hotel was subsequently replaced with this building, which was later home to the retail branch of Hallenstein Brothers New Zealand clothing factory. Other properties owned by the Meluishes included this row of cottages they had built in Dowling Street. Meluish became particularly known for his views that captured the progress of Dunedin between 1860 and 1865, as it grew from a fledgling village to the first great city of New Zealand. These three views of Dunedin's main street in 1860, 1861, and 1863 certainly chart that progress well. As well as at his gallery, 18 of Meluish's views showing the progress of Dunedin could be seen displayed at the Church of England Bazaar and Industrial Exhibition in December 1862. Copies could also be found on display at the Athenaeum. In 1865, Meluish produced 2 large photographs of Dunedin taken from Bedford House on Bell Hill, likely these two here. for display at the New Zealand exhibition that was held in Dunedin that year. According to newspaper reports, the images which Meluish took in January 1865 were simply admirable and much bigger than anything he'd ever produced before. Another of Meluish's panoramic montages formed the basis for this painting and this illustration, which appeared in the Illustrated London News in 1867. In 1868, Meluish brought the then recently invented projection technique known as Pepper's Ghost to Dunedin, staging performances the likes of which had never been seen in New Zealand before in the new post office building. School kids seemingly couldn't get enough of it. On the second day of performances for school children, more than twice the expected number that could be accommodated in the post office hall showed up, requiring 2 back-to-back screenings to be hastily arranged. Mostly girls got to partake of the first screening, while the boys had to wait for the repeat session. Even then, not all of them could be squeezed in. The show began with a kind of planetarium display, made up of moving projections of the planets, that was said to be a vast improvement over clumsy mechanical orreries in explaining the wonders of the solar system. Various dissolving photographic views followed, including a series of images that took the audience on a virtual tour from Dunedin, starting here at the Cobb & Co office, via the Southern Alps to Hokitika and other gold rush towns of the west coast. Meluish gave much of the proceeds from the shows to charity. Then he advertised the equipment for sale, saying it was an excellent opportunity for 2 young men to make a fortune by travelling throughout New Zealand with it. The Meluishes appear to have moved on around 1870, selling their furniture, their remaining stocks of photographic supplies, along with some more unusual items, a lot of canaries in full song, and a handsome window fitted with transparent photographs in stained glass. They reappear in England, William dying in London in October 1888, and Emma in Bournemouth in December 1915. Photographers who plied their trade in Dunedin in William Meluish's wake took the liberty of reprinting his iconic images of early Dunedin, often under their own names. Frank Coxhead, in particular, was instrumental in preserving Meluish's legacy, publishing Meluish's images in albums and using them in limelight shows. Frank Coxhead will undoubtedly be the subject of a future Talking Pictures, but that's it for today's episode. See you next time, and thanks for watching.